Next up, we have a panel discussion on esports and what's happening in that space. The panelists are experts who will approach the topic from multiple angles, including platform, community, and team ownership. They are Hans Jagnow from ESL Pro League, Kelly Chiew from MOONTON, and Darrell from Gank Global. Moderating the session is Jane Guo from One Esports. Please join me in welcoming them on stage.
Hello, hello. Hi, good afternoon. My name is Jane. So I lead data and insights at One Esports. I have my lovely colleagues sitting somewhere over there. So today I'm actually very, very excited to moderate this panel. So my team actually on a daily basis run a lot of custom research, not only for our own One Esports business, but also for a lot of partners. So today I prepared a short list of questions. Really want to speak with the industry veterans on the stage here and put those numbers and insights in perspective. So I think first off, I'd like to invite my lovely panelists to give a quick introduction about themselves.
Hi, my name is Darrell. I'm from Gank Global. We're a fan monetization platform, but I have also individually been a part of the local and the regional esports for the past, I guess, 5 years or so in Singapore and Malaysia. So yeah, I myself house Singapore's largest esports commentary agency. So yeah.
Hi everyone, my name is Kelly. I'm from MOONTON Games and we are the publisher of Mobile Legends Bang Bang. I am the communications lead for the company, both in the gaming department and esports department.
Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Hans Jagnow. Thank you for the invitation. I'm the VP Operations at the ESL Pro League. We are a partnership of the CSGO tournaments of the ESL Faceit group and 15 top team brands in the world playing in CSGO. Commercial partnership, and probably going to talk about this a little bit later.
Awesome. By the way, I'm going to refer to my phone for my questions, but for the audience here, feel free to type in your questions through the QR code on your table. And I think during this panel discussion, I would love to also invite my panelists to address questions from the audience. So the first one I have was around esports content, especially after the two presentations just now, one around UGC and one from TikTok, which both were amazing presentations. I'm curious, what do you think the esports content has evolved in the past 2 years? And specifically, what role do social media, streaming platforms play in this involvement?
I think esports content has evolved to be very dynamic, very fast-paced as well. So for us, we actually partner with TikTok. We have actually seen growth, not just double or triple, but actually, to be honest, tenfold from our end, especially ever since we launched our esports content on the platform. So one good example is actually MPL Indonesia, which is actually our esports league in Jakarta happening right now. Sorry. But we actually have seen a lot of millennials, a lot of Gen Zs jumping onto the platform, using it as a tool, as an engagement to communicate with their fans, their followers, and likewise to pro athletes and players around the world. We see, I would say, content being very, in a way, short form. There is, I would say, lesser long form content nowadays days, there still is, but definitely I feel that for short form content for esports, I think that definitely does bring in a lot of eyeballs, especially for our case as well.
Hans, what do you think?
Good work. Yeah. Okay. So I think over the last few years, what we have seen is esports coming from a place where you have a very traditional sports production, where you can see the broadcast of the tournaments. I mean, ESL did that for the last 20 years, right? It's still the core of the content we bring to the world, and it's exciting, epic moments. It's something we mastered over the last 2 decades. But what we are now seeing is that the ecosystem is just getting richer and richer for the fans. If you are watching a tournament, you have your, let's say, your final game. It's going on for 5 to 7 hours. It's exciting. It's great. You have a lot of analysis, etc. But then it stops. Not for esports fans, though. For esports fans, you jump off to one of the platforms, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. You see your favorite CSGO player going out there and celebrating the moment, right? Celebrating the moment, taking you back to the after party, showing what the team feels like. You have a lot of documentaries coming from actually the esports teams themselves, where they show their way to success, where they also give you an insight in how to fail, like how does that feel, how are those emotions are translated. And that's what keeps the fans engaged, even in between the tournaments. And what we see is that rich diversification of content over the past few years, just increasingly coming together. And one of the future questions will remain on how to bundle that, how to make it accessible through 1 or 2 or 3 point of contacts, and give the fans a coherent experience and bring that together.
I love this point about the diversification of esports gaming content. That's definitely so in line with what we observe as well. I think fundamentally there's a diversified motivations and people's needs, right? When they watch esports content, actually they want to learn, they want to hang out, right? They also want to entertain themselves. So I think that is really spot on. Darrell, what about your observation?
I think there's a lot of rise in the short form content, like obviously great clips of big team fights, you know, pivotal moments of the game swinging the opposite way or whatever, vice versa. Short form content is great for everyday consumers to feel excited, feel entertained and things like that. But however, the long form content, which is where, let's just say teams need to replay analysis, they need to learn how to lane properly, how to rotate properly, you know, at this timing and whatever, I need to be doing this instead of doing that and stuff like that. The teams will probably feel more educated from long form content. So I guess to each his own for whatever esports content they want to consume from whatever game.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow, I love, out of the first question, already learning a lot. Thanks, guys, for the generous sharing. The next question, I was just now telling my panelists, Kitty, this one is for you. So, you know, every quarter we really track the popularity of different gaming titles across the Southeast Asian countries, right? And it's amazing to see how MLBB has been like one of the top titles, both in terms of watch and play, especially in such a diversified like cultural landscape in Southeast Asia, right? So many cultures, so many languages. What's the secret behind this success?
I would say that the secret is actually due to great localization. This is actually also amplified by the fact that we do work with a lot of local celebrities. So for instance, for one of, I would say, the skins that I would like to highlight, that's actually a joint campaign that we did with Manny Pacquiao. So Pacquiao is a very well-known legend, especially within, I would say, the MMM spheres as well. He's also a beloved national hero in the Philippines, and actually that has also led to, I would say, one of the successes behind our game's longevity, because, you know, we work with these local influencers, we work with these local celebrities as well. And I would say that in terms of the dynamic gameplay that we also have for MLBB, it, I would say, suits the local lifestyles. especially of the Southeast Asian audiences to a T, especially when, say, for example, they're commuting, they're on the train, or they are, moving and up and about as well. You don't really need, I would say, a long duration to play MLBB. It's only just at most like 30 minutes or even less. And that actually suits, I would say, the lifestyle of a Southeast Asian consumer very well now these days.
Yeah, I think a lot of brands, whether it's from content or products, definitely want to crack the localization code, right? But not a lot of players can truly do like a thorough job, right? So yeah, what about the other two speakers here? What's your take on localization and also how to make title popularity transcend borders?
I think for us, what is really, really interesting is a general popularity of gaming in general. Like you said, it's a lifestyle, right, that comes with it. Is also boosting up the interest into traditional games, into games like Counter-Strike that have been around for over 20 years now, right, in different iterations. CSGO now having a strong foothold in different Asian markets, and that is something we can just see, like especially mobile gaming giving the gateway towards this lifestyle, towards this interest, then translating to also higher numbers in player count in different traditional games. One of the biggest concerns, I would say, though, is national legislation. We see that the Asian space is so differentiated between very restrictive countries where you just can't access the games, and I think that should remain a goal for the space in general, is to ensure accessibility to all the games the players want to play, right?
Yeah, make esports and gaming a lifestyle. That's definitely a tagline I'm taking away. Darrell, anything to add?
I think they've already said everything. Like our friends upstairs, PGL. I think they're running at least about 5 different streams with different language commentators, things like that. So like localization and accessibility is very, very important to give value back to the fans from whatever countries, whatever language spoken. Like say, it's just a huge thank you back to the fans who supported your game throughout the years.
Yeah. I'd like to now zoom into the tournament experience a little bit, right? For any esports fans, that's almost like the pinnacle of esports gaming experience, right? So over the pandemic, even right now, some countries in the world still not fully open yet, right? What's your observation on how pandemic has changed how people enjoy tournaments? Any specific technology or innovations that you are really impressed with, and to see that happen more and more in the coming years?
I think from the ESL side, what we definitely can see is that we benefited from the rich history that we are having in that space, because for us it was back to the basics. It was going online, it was producing from the bedrooms of the players, producing from the team houses, producing from wherever they were to compete, and it brings its own challenges with it. But still, we were able, when everything else shut down, when stadium closed, when sports teams couldn't compete, when entire leagues just shut off, we were able to maintain a steady tournament circuit. And I think that is, generally speaking, for the entire esports space, that was a big advantage to bring us through a pandemic that was, after all, still economically damaging, but not to an extent that other industries have experienced it. On the other side, we've seen a lot of people in lockdown looking at esports, looking at the games as their social communities, a way to connect to their friends, to their significant peers, to actually stay in contact where they couldn't meet up in bars, where they couldn't meet up in any social space they would choose to. I think esports actually, for an entire generation, and gaming in general, held the world together, right? I think that is super, super important. But coming off the pandemic, having a high vaccination rate, having a lot of measurements to protect us from COVID, we are now seeing an insane interest in coming back to the tournaments. We are just going off to Rio, the Inter Extreme Masters in Rio, which is the second major in CSGO for CSGO in 2022. And what we're seeing there is an entire stadium sold out after 40 minutes. We then upped our capacity. We are now ready to host, I think, about 100,000 fans in the end, if everything goes to plan. And we are already seeing the excitement for just the arena space. We didn't double the space, but we substantially offered more tickets in there. We doubled the duration of days in which the tournament is accessible, and still everything sold out. The main stage sold out in, I think, 90 minutes back then. It's such an immense demand for esports to be live on site, to go to the tournaments, and that needs to translate into great stage design, into great tournament experiences, into something that is really memorable. I think that is what every fan is looking for. It's the same if you go to a Super Bowl, right? You want to remember that experience by the halftime show, by the great games you watch, by the experience you have, by the accommodation you have, etc. So it's something we have to collectively work on to give the fans what they want.
Yeah, I actually have a follow-up question on that, Hans. It's great to hear the pent-up demand of the live experience is back, right? People are back in the stadium. So, but also pandemic opened people's eyes in terms of, oh, actually online tournament can be equally, if not more exciting. So when you guys think about, okay, to make the tournament online versus in person, are you trying to create the same kind of experience, or what kind of consideration there? Is there any differences when you design these different experiences?
I think for us, when we design online versus to offline, there are different, I would say, concepts. There are different kinds of branding that we take into great consideration as well. So if it's online, definitely the online viewership is prioritized from our end. For us, our main, I would say, KPI for across all MPLs is actually that of viewership, which is why typically for most of the MPLs that we do across Southeast Asia and even in the Western markets, we have something called like a viewership milestone, where we actually do drop gaming codes. We also drop in-game rewards for viewers. We reach like, a certain point. But I think just echoing here, Hans' sentiments, I do agree that there's a lot of, suppression or, sort of like there's just a lot of excitement going on right now for offline tournaments, especially here for, TI that's also going on right now. We are definitely seeing a lot more excitement from our end, especially in the case of offline tournaments. So actually, we recently just launched the M4 World Championship tickets. I'm actually very glad to say that within, I would say, less than 30 minutes, we actually sold out as well for our grand finals. And that is actually quite an epic achievement from our end as well. With this in mind, I think when it comes to both online and offline, different experiences need to be brought into great consideration, especially for offline viewers. It's typically like that of offline activations that you want to bring a much more enriching experience to the community. And as for online as well, it actually depends on, say, for example, whether or not if you actually do have, the manpower, etc., to actually employ vMix, to actually employ dynamic, visuals as well, to entice the audience to just keep on watching. Having the viewership retention is actually something that we are always studying, we're always experimenting from our end. So that's something that we are still continuously working on, even as like, in a way, as a broadcaster ourselves.
Great insights. Thank you. Darrell.
I don't know about you, I think I miss looking at esports commentators' bedrooms. So from the start of the pandemic, when you see the tournaments that were just starting up, they were just like, oh, let's put on a Discord voice call, let's screen grab the different videos, right? And you see everyone's lighting, you see everyone's messy bedroom.
Very messy.
So as time went on, oh, okay, let's get some lighting, let's improve your lighting, let's improve your webcam quality and stuff like that. Then you went on different, probably bigger tournaments, right? They started to rent big site green screen studios where they could to do more dynamic visuals, where they can have like sponsors like floating here and there, you know, different things that is just based on creativity, right? Where you may or may not replicate it in an offline setting, stuff like that. So we saw a bit of an improvement from the start of the pandemic all the way to now. So now we realize that, I mean, obviously when you do online tournaments, it's going to be, so to speak, lesser overheads in a way, you know, compared to offline, right? But sometimes, I guess, right now, I think only Singapore and only a couple of countries, like I think M3 last year was done very well and stuff like that. I think Singapore proved that we could do a lot of different tournaments, although we were in pandemic. You know, from hotel, we transferred the hotel to the tournament site, make sure everything's in a bubble and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, I think the tech for and visuals for online tournaments and viewer experience has enhanced and improved over the very short course of a few months. Yeah.
I think these are really very, very interesting observation. I'm trying to reflect on what at One Esports we have done differently over the past 2 years post-pandemic. I think indeed, like the way the creative has been brought into the space and opened up the imagination. For example, how the players can be featured, how the brands can be featured, and how to bring in social media, right, to create this very multi-dimensional experience. Probably will continue to be a big draw for the community. So now I'd like to switch gear to tap into your perspective around the comparison between this region, particularly Asia, versus West, right? So are there any interesting similarities or differences you observe within the esports communities in this part of the world versus in the West?
I think it's, for us, we are still very West-centric, I would say. And that is just an honest analysis on where our audience sits currently, how our teams are structured, etc. However, we have in our partnership structure with the ESL Pro League, in the core product, the ESL Pro League, we have an open space in which you can qualify to the Pro League. So it's not a completely franchised and closed-off ecosystem, rather than a semi-open ecosystem, which you guarantee stability for the partnered members, but still have open spaces. And we see regularly teams from Asia, like Chiew Gaming, being qualified through that open system. So there's definitely a presence of Asia within our ecosystem. And what we can see is also raising interest in Asian viewership and in raising interest in the players that play actually the game, which then obviously are an interesting factor for us to factor into the audience assumptions and the audience growth expectations. So Asia definitely for us is a growth market. But again, like I said, if you speak about Asia, it's the same as you would speak about the Americas, right? There's a complete difference between an Argentina, Brazil, and USA. It's the same on the Asian continent, and the countries are so different. The communities are very, very different in terms of what games do they prefer to play, etc., on what national legislation they have, what games are accessible to them, what technologies are accessible to them, etc. So that remains to be a key factor in how the region will develop and how to creatively create a framework to allow for Asian gamers to actually participate in the esports space. The interest is definitely there.
I think for us, it's actually the reverse. We are actually also trying to penetrate the Western market here. And Brazil was actually one of our top focus, followed by Peru, Argentina, Mexico, the Americas as well. But I think there's one thing that kind of like unites our fans together, and actually that is passion And this was actually made very obvious, especially during the M3 World Championship. Even though it was, from a rival team, etc., we were pretty shocked to discover that a North American team by the name of BTK, they actually did very well and climbed all the way to the top 3, despite, their server versus to the rest not being the same, meaning to say that they won't meet other experienced players in, I would say, North America versus to that of Southeast Asia, because the game launched much earlier over there as well. But that being said, the passion of, I would say, our fans, our esports players, that's actually something that unites everyone together, and also that also keeps that, connector going on as well.
Darrell, what about you?
I don't feel there's an inherent difference, really. I mean, they're all united by the same game. They just speak different languages. If you don't understand the other person's language, there's emojis that you can throw out to just BM your opponents, things like that. So I think each player, each game, they understand inherently a team fight, an epic play, a throw or whatever. They all understand that. So I don't think inherently they consume very differently the content. It's quite universal, I would say, yeah.
What about from a monetization perspective, particularly from a direct-to-consumer angle? Because from our data, like this part of the region, we're not short of engagement. Like people are so sticky to the screen, to the game, right? But when it comes to actually pay for something within the game or within the experience, it seems like the interest is still not as strong as especially high GDP markets in the West. So I'm curious, from your perspective, should the brands or developers, like players in the ecosystem here, do something different to attract these interests to spend?
I think on the contrary, what we experience is pretty different from our end, because so far actually we've been seeing more increased interest actually from sponsors, from brands. So take for example, for I believe our Mobile Legends Super League in Peru, MLSL, we actually saw Claro Gaming. They are quite a big internet provider over there, actually jump on to be our sponsor over there, and Xiaomi as well, a well-known phone brand across the world. They jumped on pretty quickly to be our sponsors when we first launched the league in less than a year ago, actually. So that was also pretty surprising for us, because they believe in the growth of esports, they believe in the growth of gaming as well, and they also believed in our ethos that especially esports should be made accessible for everyone and anyone to play as well. Because for us, what really matters is that, are we actually, speaking the right language to the right market? Are we reaching out to the right diversification as well? Are we reaching out to minorities, to more, say for example, like women in gaming? Are we doing more of that? And we definitely are. We are working with these brands to make all of these happen and to make it a lot more open, a lot more possible as well. So for us, I think on the contrary, it's really very different here. Yeah.
So don't think about making money just for the sake of it, right? Think about how to attract the audience.
Purpose, yeah.
I think it's just what you touched on, right? It's a marketing question, first and foremost. It's a question of how do you approach your customers, your fans. But for me, the second most important thing is, maybe even more important, is what value do we create for fans? What utility do we actually create for fans with the products offered, right? What's the interest? What do they want? What are they educated on to see as valuable in their personal spaces? And then what they will actually buy, or what they will actually book as a service, etc. So I think just coming from a position where you don't say, well, this is my product, you now have to buy it. You should always be able to critically reflect on yourself and say, what is actually the value I bring for fans? What is the value I can transport through esports to the fans? And that's actually what we tell a lot of our brand partners is, please think about on how to approach the fans, because it's not just putting on an advertisement clip. That's 1980s, that's 1990s, but that's not working with our current customer base, right? It's not working with our audience. You need to be engaged, you need to be in there, your product needs to make sense for them, And if you need to explain why that is, you should use the platform to explain it, not to just say, buy me, right? And that is something that is super, super important. The second thing is brand image. It's just something where you can, through constant work, put yourselves to the minds of a young audience that grows up with you. It grows up with esports, so it should, as a brand partner, it should grow up with you. I think that is super important, but it's very long-term, right? It's a long-term strategy, and you have to have the courage to actually say, this is something where we're not in for 6 months or 12 months, but this is something where we're in for 5 months, for 5 years, or for 10 years, and we have a coherent esports strategy to actually execute on and see the fruits of our labor in the next half decade to a decade.
Well said. Bring on the value.
But I guess right now, I think a lot of games do a lot of collaborative efforts with other IPs. Right, for example, Fortnite has been putting their hands into Marvel, even Naruto, all those different things to just pull on the heartstrings of the players already, or new users or new players that like, oh wow, suddenly I can play as Sasuke, suddenly I can play as Batman or whatever, right? I can play as even Goku from Dragon Ball Z. Like, I can't have that unless I actually play the Dragon Ball Z game, right? But I can do it in Fortnite now. So things like that could also be a strategy for monetization at the same time, where it's easy sell because the other IP has already done the work. I just buy the IP and just make the character here, buy it, right? So I think MLBB has done quite a good work with collaborating with, I think, different partners at the same time as well, having skins for specific different characters, which also likewise pull on the heartstrings of people who already are bought into the other IP. Right now, oh, I can do it in this IP, great. Let me buy it. I think, did you guys do a Tekken?
Yeah, no, I think it was Street Fighter.
Oh yeah, that's right, the Street Fighter one, that's right. So yeah, things like that.
Speaking of skin and diamonds, definitely spend a lot of money on that.
Yeah. Too much.
Yeah, so I also want to explore a bit on the role of mobile in this esports gaming space. I remember 2 years ago, we did a big quantitative study surveying thousands of gamers in Southeast Asia and US, right? And one of the interesting findings is, the device people choose to use is kind of a representation of their attitude towards the gaming. Like, there's a big chunk of console PC gamers. They almost represent the OG group, right? Very hardcore, super engaged. They have high expectation on the device they use, right? They spend obviously a lot of money on those things. Where we also notice a rising amount of gamers, especially in this region, they almost leapfrog, skip the console PC stage directly now in the mobile stage, right? And this is so prominent also among the female demographic, right? So I'm curious to discuss, what do you think this whole rise of mobile in this region would impact the ecosystem, from a content creator perspective, developer perspective, and brands? What does it mean to these different players? What are the opportunities here?
I think for us, it's been pretty interesting so far, especially since the pandemic as well, because that definitely influenced quite a lot of consumer purchases. For instance, we have definitely seen more people, upgrading their PCs, buying more than multiple phones just to play Mobile Legends. Up to this day, I'm still very mystified. How does one actually, play MLBB with 2 characters in one go? If anyone knows, please teach me. I would love to know, what is, how fast your fingers move, yeah, that kind of thing. But yeah, it's essentially, we've seen a lot of this, like, I would say, like, buying behavior, especially the purchase of more and more, mobile phones from our side, resulting in, I would say, in a way, like, more monetization, more accounts being created, more downloads, more installations from our end. Which is all very well, but at the same time, we also do consider about, I would say, the changing consumer dynamic as well, meaning to say that it seems like they want more, not less. They definitely want to play more, and I guess that's a very encouraging thing.
And like I said earlier, right, it's an entryway to a smaller group, obviously, that then translate into what you just described as OG gamers, right? But it's one of the most interesting growth markets in esports, and it's also, since we are at Gamescom Asia, it's the thing that is most interesting for the Asian region in general is the mobile esports sector. We see that with our Snapdragon Pro series that is played and watched mainly from Asia, but it's still like since 2019 has been an insane growth of that product to just catch up to what we now. It's even funny to say that what now is traditional esports, right? So there's already a traditional esports sector, I would say, but the mobile space is very, very interesting, especially when it comes to demographics. It's one of the few esports titles where you have nearly an equal gender ratio throughout the gamers and the viewers, and it's just so interesting to see how that develops and hopefully influences other gaming spaces as well. I think that is super, super important for a maturity of the whole esports industry in general. It is a great entryway. It's a good thing to just jump on. Like, our smartphones are our entire world at some point of time, right? It's you have your private contacts on there to just message. You have some work stuff going on there, but you also have your gaming experience on there. You play, but you also watch on mobile. So mobile is not only interesting as mobile esports in terms of playing the esports, but also for the audience and fans for what I just described as traditional esports, to actually watch it, right? It's where a lot of people tune into platforms like Twitch and get engaged and watch the tournaments, but also chat, bring in their own activations, etc. So you can't underestimate at all the impact of mobile to gaming in general, both from a player side, but also from a fan viewership side.
I think obviously the low barrier to entry is the biggest thing. I think that's what sold for at least 5 years ago to. They were selling to all the telcos. Oh, hey, let's sell this. You're gonna increase your mobile phone purchases and stuff like that. That's where I think a lot of the telcos had a good buy-in. Like, oh, okay, let's do this. You know, let's package it together and sell it as such. So I mean, obviously for the esports space itself, because of the low barrier entry, more and more the newer generation it's easier for people to get in now, to start playing, number one. Number two, start viewing and consuming content and learning about gaming and esports as a whole. As compared to back in the day, oh my god, we needed a computer, oh my god, 56K modem, dial up. Oh my god, I can't connect to the internet, I can't even play my CSGO, I can't even play my Dota with a potato computer. You know what I mean? So the barrier to entry was higher because it was like, okay, now I need to fork out $2,000, $3,000 just to play some game that's on the PC. Now I can just sign up to Singtel or StarHub, whatever, you know, so cheap. And my parents can just pay for it, and I just use my Wi-Fi from home, and just consume every single thing there. Yeah.
Yeah, the time is here. Can't wait to see more and more esports content coming from here. We have a little time left, and I see there are some great questions from the audience. Thanks a lot for submitting. I think we have time for one. Yeah. Okay. Excuse my poor eyesight. Game publishers have a lot of power in esports. How do you navigate this when trying to make money in sports? Great question.
Yeah, maybe I can begin with that. And obviously, ESL has 2 decades of experience dealing with developers and publishers. And I think the secret is always great partnership. Not every product, not every game is accessible to us, but those who are, we build great partnerships and we bring a unique asset towards those developers and publishers, not only with our experience in creating an exciting broadcast, bringing together players and talent to produce that, to create great stages, but also in how to structure an ecosystem. So when we are talking about what's new in the esports space, what is the trends in the esports space, I would definitely go for sustainable ecosystems, where every stakeholder has a share in what is happening and the revenues created. And that is something we are doing with the ESL Pro League in CSGO, is that model of integration and sustainability. Our teams profit from the security of being able to compete in the top-tier tournaments, but also from the shared revenues with them. And what we bring to the table is then a rights package for every publisher to access in the future, is that to execute that model. We can go to a publisher, we can go to a developer and say, well, this looks like a great esports title. We should partner up and see what we can do to create an esports ecosystem around it. Our ecosystem will be sustainable because we know how to do it. We tested it with the biggest with the biggest teams in the world, and it runs very, very successful so far. I think it's just super important to note that this sustainability will become the deciding factor for the future development. If every stakeholder can be there for the next 5 years, for the next 10 years, the fans will be happy because they know what to watch and follow.
100%. I think partnership is really the key of the game here. What about the other two speakers here? Anything to add?
I think for us, it's not just about partnerships as well. It's also about, you know, what the fans want and what the players want. For us, from a gaming publisher point of view, that is the #1 priority that we always have as well. In terms of, you know, do we have a lot of power? To be honest, I would say most of that power actually goes back to our fans and to our community as well, because we do take this community feedback very seriously, especially when certain issues happen as well. We do actually read through, we try to read through every single comment, every single feedback that, you know, one fan or, you know, maybe 10 or even more, thousands of fans might have about a particular incident as well. As I mentioned earlier on, in terms of, like, you know, making money, that is not the main purpose here. The main purpose is also, once again, the sustainability and whether or not if this can actually go on for the next 5 years, the next 10 years, if we can actually continue, you know, having this partnership with the teams, if they're all in it, then so are we as well. And that is also, I would say, from our point of view, the main concern is what is the purpose here? What are we trying to achieve that, you know, is not monetary, that doesn't solely fall on money, just that alone?
I'll just have a last sentence because they're asking us to wrap up already. The sentence will be, what money in esports are you looking for? Right? I mean, if you're asking on game publishers having a lot of power in esports, meaning whether or not they jurisdict you using their title and IP to then make money, then maybe you're not giving a compelling reason to the game publisher for letting them let you use their IP for monetization. Maybe you don't have the credibility to do so. Things like that. So there's a lot of factors when it comes to saying that game publishers have a lot of power. Some publishers do allow you, some publishers do not allow you. But you must ask yourself why they do not allow you. So that's the question you gotta ask yourself first. Putting money aside, don't think too much about making money in esports yet. That's for sure.
All right, that's a wrap. Thanks a lot, guys, for the generous sharing. And thank you, audience, for the questions.